Hey everybody, it's Saturday morning and we're going to do a very spur-of-the-moment round-the-world update. We're going to start here as usual with my 29-gallon miscellaneous tank. I don't really have anything going on in here to speak of, except if you will look in the back left here, I've got one of these blue skirt tetra glowfish. Seems to be on its last legs. If you'll remember, I've always had a fish in here that's had swim bladder issues. It would sink if it stopped swimming. So that little fish for about the last 4 years has continually had to swim to stay up off the bottom. And considering the fact that I think 3 to 5 years is the normal lifespan for a skirt tetra, this one hasn't had a bad run. I'm not going to worry about taking it out and euthanizing it just yet. I don't think there's any issue like disease or anything that's going to be transmitted to any of the other fish. It's just simply getting old and wearing out, and it's had issues its whole life anyway. So again, I'm just going to let nature take its course, and in due time when it passes, I'll just go ahead and remove it. Other than that, nothing really going on in this tank. Haven't done anything in there. Haven't really shot any video of it or anything else. As usual, I've been sort of obsessed with my native tank this week. Pretty much same goes for the gourami tank here. I haven't done anything to it. I haven't done so much as a water change on it or really shot any video. I did see my striped Raphael out and about the other day swimming around. And I did get a glimpse of my little bumblebee catfish that hides in the bottom, so I know that one is still alive. Other than that, there's not really anything that I can even think of to talk about with this tank. I suppose that's not entirely true. I do have some doubts as to whether one of the fish that's very reclusive in this tank is even still alive anymore. It's been so long since I've seen it, and it was never a fish that I never saw. And that fish was a red-tailed loach, or sometimes called a blue loach. And when I bought it, I didn't realize two things. I didn't realize that it was not a gregarious loach, as most of them are. This is one of the few loaches that's actually sort of aggressive. And they get pretty big. They get about 10 inches. And it used to hide in the back underneath these rocks back there. And it would come out when I put algae wafers in the tank occasionally. It would dart out, grab an algae wafer, and dart back in. Or I would just see it move around occasionally. I believe it used to bury itself underneath of this piece of wood. There's actually some space. I know I got a lot of glare on the tank right now, but there's actually some space underneath there where a fish that wriggles under things like a loach could get under there and hide. And so there were long periods of times where I wouldn't see it. But it's been so long now, I'd actually forgotten it was in there until the other day, and so now I'm beginning to wonder if it even is still in there, and I kind of suspect not. It's just been so long since I've seen it that I'm beginning to doubt whether it's even still in there or not. So that's really all I've got going on in this tank, is just a little speculation crossed my mind this week while I was kind of sitting here wondering about it. Angelfish tank is pretty much the same story. Nothing really going on to speak of in here. I did have some pre-spawning behavior the other day between my mated pair. Were acting like they were going to spawn, and then the aggression that was peaked between this one here, which is the odd man out, and then this over here is my mated couple. They never spawned, though. It was just a bunch of bluster and fighting, and, I really expected... I did shoot a video about that. I really did expect some spawning behavior within the next day or two, and I never saw any of it. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't do it. They might have done it while I wasn't here. I have seen these fish spawn, and then literally within hours, all of the eggs are gone, and you would never have known anything had ever happened. So they may have spawned, and I may just have missed it. It's a possibility, but I never did get any video. I never saw anything happen or anything else, and that's really all that's going on in this tank. I haven't done any more work towards removing any of the substrate. I haven't done anything with any of the fish. I never did find the body of that little male cherry barb I had put in there I mentioned that before, and I think in one video I mistakenly called it a tiger barb. But I did have a male cherry barb in there, and it lived for about a month and then died. So again, that's just one of those mysteries. I have no idea why it died. I do know that it did not die for no reason. However, it did die from some cause. I simply don't know what that cause was, and I'm not really going to stress or worry about it either. Small fish like that die from time to time. It hadn't been in the tank long enough, you know, for it to be an established fish or anything else. So I just chalk it up to, you know, it just, my water didn't suit it, and it passed. You know, whatever. Moving on. My tripod that I'm tripping over is behind me. This is my black ghost knife fish tank, and I will say that I've made a decision about this tank, and very soon we're going to be calling it something else. I don't know whether or not I'm going to take my black ghost knife fish out. I may as well, since we never ever see it. I did see its head stick out last night when I was going around turning the lights out, and so I know it's in there. I know it's still alive. It's not a matter of its, you know, question of whether it's in there. It just never does anything. There's just no point. This tank would be more exciting if I just put a picture of a black ghost knife fish on the glass and taped it on there, and then at least we'd get to see what one looks like, because we don't when we look at this tank. So I've got an idea of what I want to do with this tank that's going to hopefully make it more interesting again, and it does not require me removing the black ghost. So whether I do that or not is going to be a separate issue compared to what I'm going to do with the tank to make it more interesting. So that's all I'm going to say about that now. You can see the little flashes of white moving around the tank. I did put my silver molly and my Dalmatian that, for all intents and purposes, looks like a black molly. There's little to no white on it at all. And in fact, they're swimming around together. They usually are. That black one is just so hard to see unless you really get in there and look for it. And now that I'm up close to the glass like this, you can see this tank is also due for some maintenance. I've been very preoccupied, as I said, with my native tank. So speaking of my native tank, you can get ready for the green monster that this is. This one really needs some work, and that is my goal today. That's on my agenda today, to get in there and wipe that glass down, do a big water change. You can see patterns in the glass, I mean in the algae. If I would ever, it doesn't know what to focus on, so it tries to focus on the glass. There we go. You can see those scrape lines. That looks to me like little tiny teeth marks from fish scraping and eating the algae. And if I had to guess, I would say that it's probably that tilapia that's in here. This tilapia is an amazing algae eater. I had no idea. So this is my big beast monster fish that is eating all of my other fish. And I'm really kind of regretting putting him in here now. I'm actually kind of having, I don't know if regrets is the right word, emotional issues. I don't know. This tank has just got me kind of upset. I was really, really digging this tank when it had those rosy side dace in particular were just absolutely stunning. I loved them. But I really liked the groups of shoaling fish and the activity and the flowing smooth motion from one end of the tank to the other. It was a really relaxing tank. It was really pretty. And then I put these sunfish in here, and they've just devastated it. They've blown the bioload up. I mean, you can see the algae. I've always had algae issues in this tank, but I mean, this is just getting silly. It's been less than a week since I got in there and wiped the glass down and did big water change, and we've already got this much algae growing again. So my nitrates and everything are probably through the roof on this tank right now. At any rate, I'll do some video about, you know, whatever I do on this tank later today. But I've just completely changed the dynamics of this tank by putting these sunfish in here. So at this point, I feel kind of bad about it, but these shiners are so beat up, and it's the only 5 remaining, that I have decided that at the very least I'm going to do is leave the sunfish in the tank until the shiners are gone. I think it would be kind of cruel to leave them all beat up like that. They're probably all going to die from their injuries in the long run anyway. You know, they're going to get infections or whatever else because they've just got so much scrapes and scratches on them. But that's what happens when you live in the same tank as sunfish. So I knew it was going to happen. I don't know why I'm, bothered by it happening. I guess maybe I didn't realize how much I liked the tank the way it was, as opposed to the way it now is. But, as I've started, so I'll go on. I am going to go with some of the larger, more predatory fish for a while. I said this was going to be a native tank. I said it would be something we could experiment with and sort of learn from. And, one thing we're learning is how aggressive sunfish are, especially these green sunfish here. These two are the same species. These are green sunfish. And this one down here is a common bluegill. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen when I get in there today. I might try to... oh, look, I just noticed that we've got a dead shiner right there already. So I definitely have to get in there and collect that shiner up. So I might get in there and try to get that little warmouth out. I know it was still in there last night. I was feeding it with my PVC pipe. It was coming out and getting some of the bloodworms. So it is in there. It is still feeding. It is still hiding. So that fish is probably going to come out at some point. So that might be on my agenda today, etc., etc. So that's a quick rundown on what's going on with the native tank. Again, tune in for more. I'm doing plenty of video on this. It's not like I got to stand here for half an hour and talk about it anymore. Snail tank is... I guess the one thing I could mention about my snail tank is I've got two kinds of snails in here. I have the really scary invasive kind, which are these large ones you see all over the place. Those are the ram's horn snails. And then I've got little pond snails in there. And the ram's horn snails don't seem to have any problem breeding at all. They're just going crazy in there population-wise. My pond snails I can't seem to get to take off. I used to get egg clusters all over the glass. Well, this is an acrylic tank, but I used to get them all over the acrylic, and I don't anymore. So what I think it is, I think it's the ghost shrimp I have in here. I have 3 or 4 ghost shrimp in hopes that I can actually breed them, and I have, as of yet, I have not seen any baby shrimp or even pregnant females. You can see a couple sitting right there off the corner of that rock. There's one sticking its face out, and then there's another one over there under that tan rock. And I think they're going around eating the eggs off of the acrylic or the glass, whatever you want to call it. And that's why I'm not getting any more, and I don't see any more egg clusters. I can see like this little spot right there, if you can see that kind of fuzzy spot. That looks like the sort of glue that held the egg cluster on, but it's clearly not an egg cluster anymore. So the snails are probably still in there doing their thing. I think the shrimp are just coming around behind them and doing their thing, which is being a good cleanup crew and keeping all that stuff off the glass for me. So don't know what I'm going to do about that. I might try to catch the shrimp and pull them out of there. I've got my red clawed crab tank that I can put my shrimp in. So that's a possibility. But that is something I've noticed over the last week or so. I've been noticing that. My gudgeon and T-bar tank is still just kind of doing its thing. I haven't really gotten in there and done much. I did go in and rearrange the plants a little bit. I put some Java fern, and I've got another piece here that's come uprooted and been pulled out from the rocks I had it tucked under. So I'll have to get in there and tuck that back in. But otherwise, everything seems to be doing okay. Most of the other plants that have come out are going to come out. There's not much left of them. I've got the odd little temple plant here and there, a little piece of temple plant here and there. This here is a temple plant. This back here is a little piece of temple plant. But mostly we're just going to go with Java tucked into the rocks, and that is, of course, thanks to my little digger Dan, the steam shovel man. My T-bar here, who loves to dig. He's building himself a volcano. And then these guys are just getting bigger and more beautiful and more colorful. I did have my gudgeon come up out of the water the other day and grab a shrimp out of my hand before I could even get it in the tank. So one of these days I will set my tripod up and get the lights set up, and of course he won't perform once I get all that done. But I will try to get a nice video of my gudgeon jumping out of the water and either biting the end of my finger or snatching shrimp right out of my hand. An aggressive little thing. and he has an enormous cavernous mouth. So if anybody does want to keep these gudgeons, they're fairly hardy and they're fairly easy to keep. Just don't keep them with anything remotely smaller than them. You know, I would say at least equal to their size or larger, fish-wise, or you will be missing fish very quickly. My 125, let's walk back around this side of the room so we can see the whole thing. We'll focus on it, there we go. This tank needs a little bit of pruning. I need to get in there and remove a little bit of that water sprite. It's getting a bit on the overgrown side. And what actually happened was I got in there and I removed a whole bunch of babies from the mother plant in the center. This is the one that's actually tucked in between that piece of wood and the rock, and that anchors it in place. And it spits out babies galore. And the last time I got in there, instead of separating them out and removing them, I just separated them out and then left the babies free floating in the tank. And the result is I've got a lot of floating water sprite in here that needs to come out and lighten this tank up. The glass up here on the front needs a bit of cleaning, and so on and so forth. Otherwise, nothing going on in here, no changes, nothing different. I did shoot a little bit of video of this tank a while ago. I don't know if it's been since my last update or not. Also don't know if since my last update, this temple plant came out of my gourami tank not long ago, and I've planted it in here. And I never really have much luck with plants in here, and I'm not really sure why. I keep meaning to do a video about that too, but I never seem to get around to that one either. This piece here is some former temple plant, some narrowleaf temple plant that was planted next to this one. I just inserted this one recently, and that one back there was looking pretty rough. And apparently it got rougher and rougher to the point where it just broke off and detached and just come right out of the ground. So I don't know what to make of that. I didn't even notice I got one of my little Otocincluses hanging on right there. Love my little Otocinclus. Very underrated aquarium fish. Other than that, I can't really think of anything to talk about. I've not replaced the Congo tetras that I had in here. I'd lost a few a while back. I still have not gotten down to my good fish store that usually carries them. One of these days I will get down there. One of these days I'm going to have to get that Mayan cichlid and that tilapia out of my native tank. There's a story behind why I have them in my native tank in the first place. So whenever I get them out of there, that'll be my trip down to the pet store. I'll be able to trade them in and get a little bit of credit. And then I can put that credit towards getting some Congo tetras if they have any in stock. And we'll build my little shoal of Congos back up. My Brackish tank. I got in here this week and did a pretty good water change. I removed all of the dead, spent shells on the bottom, I guess you could call them. The empty snail shells, after the puffer gets done eating the meat out of them, I wind up with a little graveyard of empty snail shells on the bottom. So I got in there and cleaned them out. I wiped the glass down and just did a basic water and filter change. And then, of course, I tried to shoot a little bit of video of Butterbean here. I don't know if he's getting a little more used to the camera or not, but he seems a little less skittish of it. Perhaps it's because he thinks he's going to get fed now. Maybe that's why he's up here against the glass, and once he realizes no food is forthcoming, he might just turn around and go sulk in the corner like he usually does. I probably should get in there and remove some of the detritus that's gotten caught up on the power head. I still have not seen that little shrimp in quite a while, so I think our little friendly relationship between the ghost shrimp that was in here and Butterbean is over. And I think the ghost shrimp wound up being on the wrong end of that equation because I do not see it anymore. Yeah, other than that, I can't really think of anything else that I've got going on in this tank. My quarantine tank down here has had an explosion of guppies, which is to be expected when you put 4 pregnant female guppies in a tank. And they started dropping them, and I've just got guppies everywhere now. So I still have 2 of the hatchet fish. I went to the big chain pet store yesterday. They didn't have any more in stock. So I do want to wait and build this little school of hatchet fish up to about 5 to 7 before I move them into the tank they're going to be in. I don't want to put just 2 of them in the tank right now. I'm going to keep them in this nice little sort of compact and secure tank before I put them in the larger tank where they're going to live permanently. So I need to build that school up a little bit. And I also need to get in here and trim back a little bit of this water sprite. Believe it or not, this was one frond of water sprite that I threw in here. It wasn't even a whole rooted mass of plant. It was literally just, you know, you see this little, I'll call it a branch or whatever, the little frond right here. I had just broken one of them off another plant, and I threw it in here just to physically have something floating on the surface. I figured it would probably start growing, but I wasn't sure. I just wanted something floating on the surface. And that one frond has turned into this. I mean, it's growing. This one frond right here is actually growing over to the glass, hit the glass, and has gone down and is growing across the bottom now. So if you're looking for a fast-growing plant, you can't go wrong with water sprite. It grows crazy fast. So that's what's going on with my quarantine tank. And lastly, for this room, but not least, is the new look of my red clawed crab tank, and we're fortunate enough to see my 2 brand new fish front and center. I just shot a video yesterday about remodeling this tank, so I'm not going to get into that. If you're interested into some of the details about how I did it and whatever, I will attach a card and you can check out that, or just check out the red clawed crab tank playlist, and that will be the first video at the top of the list. I just published it yesterday. The video does not, however, show my 2 new fish very clearly because the water was so cloudy and the fish were in hiding. But I got a blue wag platy, which I'm really happy about. And I got this velvet wag swordtail. I don't want to get the camera too close because once you get into the light, then you start getting the reflection of the camera back onto the lens. So I've got 2 fish in here, and the idea being that, if you hadn't noticed, I got a bunch of baby guppies happening in this tank too. They're just starting to appear. I do have a female in there, and I did not realize she was pregnant. And I don't know whether the Endler's guppies that are in here are able to crossbreed with her. I'm sure they probably are, so I have no idea what kind of babies we're going to be getting out of this. But I put 2 larger fish in there with the assumption that they would start basically using the fry as fish food, and they're showing no interest in it whatsoever. And of course, platies and, you know, pretty much all the live bears, mollies, platies, variatus, swordtails, guppies, they're pretty much known for being algae eaters, much more than they are of being predatory type fish. I've had people tell me that the guppies themselves will eat the fry. I've seen no evidence of that yet. I've seen no interest in them at all. And so far I've not seen any interest from either of these platies. Well, swordtail and platy. So I don't know, I might have to just get in there and start physically catching them and putting them into tanks that do have fish that will gobble them up. I hate to have that be a solution for how to get rid of them, but I really don't know where else I could get rid of them. But I definitely have to get rid of the females, because as long as I have them, I'm just going to keep having babies, and I'm going to keep having this issue. So, at any rate, this is my new look on my red clawed crab tank. Again, if you want to get any more details on that, you can check out the video. But I did just completely revamp this tank yesterday. I put a second waterfall in. I added about twice as much water. I increased the amount of surface area for the crabs to crawl on, and a few other things. So there you go. That was our Around the World. We're back to where we started. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss any of the stuff I got coming up that I talked about today, or any little random odds and ends that I pop out with from time to time. So thanks again for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you real soon on the next one.